Back now to our top story. New details today about what went down at the home of a Bank of America executive when an angry mob showed up on his lawn to stage a massive protest.
No! Will we take back our democracy?
That's just a sample. You can see the folks are right on the man's front stoop. This is some of the video. 14 school buses in all filled with union demonstrators from the SEIU protesting home foreclosures. This whole thing, as I said, organized by the SEIU, which is the largest union in this country. Some bloggers are now blasting the police in Washington, D.C., saying that the Washington, D.C. officers actually escorted these protesters from D.C. to this man's home, which is in suburban Maryland, saying that they were afraid that arrests would incite the mob. But is that what really happened? Let's ask my guests. Assistant Chief Patrick Burke. He's with the Washington Metro Police Department, and Captain Paul Stark of the Montgomery County, Maryland Police Department. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. All right. Okay, Chief Burke, you're in D.C., which is where stuff originated, so I want to start with you. The charge is that these 14 busloads of SEIU protesters came through D.C. and that your cops, your officers, actually escorted them to this man's home. True or false?
That's absolutely 100% false. The Metropolitan Police Department deals with protesters on a daily basis in D.C. As per our protocols and ensuring their First Amendment rights, we shadow groups to make sure they're safe and that any target locations, our persons would be safe as well. When this specific group of protesters approached the Montgomery County line, our officers staged on the D.C. border, notified Montgomery County to let them know that they had protesters coming their way.
Okay, so you did alert Montgomery County that the protesters were coming.
Absolutely. And once again, as we do with all First Amendment demonstrations, we shadow protesters. For anyone to claim that we escorted protesters to a location inside D.C. or outside of D.C. borders is absolutely irresponsible.
And none of your officers crossed the line into Maryland. They all stayed in D.C.
That's correct. The only change from that is we did have an officer, a detective, who made a wrong turn off of a park, Beach Drive, which is just across the Maryland line. As soon as that officer realized she was in Maryland, she notified Montgomery County and came back into Washington.
Okay, so she didn't have anything to do with this protest.
That's correct. She just notified Montgomery County, Maryland, that these protesters were in off of Beach Drive on a street called Leland, just across the D.C. border, and returned to Washington. But once again, for anyone to assume or to blog that D.C. or Montgomery County police would escort protesters to a specific or targeted address is absolutely incorrect.
Okay, Chief Burke, stand by because I want to get to Maryland. Captain Paul Stark is with me now. He's from Montgomery County. Captain, thank you for being here. Is it the case that you were notified by the D.C. police that you had 14 busloads of SEIU protesters coming in to protest a man's home?
That is correct. Not only did they call us by phone, but when I had 3 officers respond there, we met with them along the D.C. line. They shared information, and then the Montgomery County officers went to the home where the protest at that point was dispersing. And the officer who was there said it was a very peaceful disbursement. He met with a police liaison from the protesting group as well as one of their attorneys. All of them were walking back towards their buses.
Okay, because the Montgomery County spokesperson earlier said that D.C. units were present on the scene in Maryland. Is that not the case? Was it all Maryland cops, or were the D.C. cops actually there?
Well, as Chief Burke said, there may have been a time when one of his folks was unaware that they crossed over. This residence is just a block or 2 into Montgomery County from the district. It's in a residential area. It's not marked with large signage that says welcome to D.C. or welcome to Montgomery County.
Okay, but let me ask you this, Captain Stark, because no matter what the signs are, you can see what signs actually wound up on the home of Greg Baer. This is a lawyer who works for Bank of America. You got between, now the latest estimates, over 500 people coming onto the man's lawn. There was a 14-year-old boy alone inside that home at the time. How is it that no arrests were made, sir?
Well, when we got there, what we saw did not rise to the level of a criminal violation. And in Maryland, this property wasn't posted for no trespassing. We always have to give the people who are on private property one chance to leave. There was only 3 officers who showed up against all these 500 protesters. They peacefully left when these officers arrived.
You know, I looked it up, sir. I mean, it may not have been trespass, because you have to tell somebody to leave, and they have to refuse before it's trespass. But I'm looking at the disturbing the peace and disorderly conduct statute in the state of Maryland. A person who enters the land of another may not willfully disturb the peace of persons on the land by, for example, making an unreasonably loud noise or acting in a disorderly manner. How is this not that, sir? How does this not fit that definition?
By one fact, it didn't occur in the presence of police. Oftentimes these groups will coordinate with us first and let us know where they're going to be because they want media attention. In this case, I believe that wasn't the case.
Well, what they did is they called a blogger from the Huffington Post. They didn't want attention from others, but they wanted the Huffington Post there. But, sir, you saw, when your officers arrived, you saw the remnants of what was there. You knew that a 14-year-old boy was inside. The quote that was given to the neighbor, Nina Easton, who happens to be a Fox News contributor, was that, according to the Maryland police she talked to, they didn't want to issue citations because they were afraid that it would further incite the protesters.
That isn't what was told to me by the supervisor who responded to the scene.
Can this be legal, sir? I mean, because I think you got a lot of people, not just in Maryland, but out there in the country watching this. Look at that man, Captain. Look at him. He is on the front stoop of that man's home with his young boy inside. How can this be legal?
Again, if this had occurred in front of a law enforcement officer and they had requested him to stop or leave, then lawful action could have been taken. But police weren't there to take the action.
But you can see it now, sir. You can see it now. You are, in essence, an eyewitness to it, as we all are. And there's no requirement in the disorderly conduct statute that says the police need to witness it.
We need to be there to see that it occurred and then take action if they don't stop. We have to give them a warning.
For trespass.
It's going to be very hard to prosecute a case in Maryland, whether it's for the disorderly conduct call or a trespassing violation this way.
So you're telling me, sir, that it's the case. You can have 500 people show up on somebody's front lawn, terrify their children, and they can do it for an hour if it takes the police an hour to show up. And that entire hour, it's fine. Go for it, because you are on solid legal ground unless a police officer has laid eyes upon you and given you a warning.
Well, if you're asking me in that context, I have to say that that's possible. In this case, I don't believe they were there for anywhere close to an hour. I think they were there for a short period of time. And what they did was a normal course of conduct for this group. And again, when the police arrived, they peacefully left.
It was a normal course of conduct for this group. Is that something, I mean, is that what your point, that this is normal for them?
To come to a location en masse with the number of folks they did to voice their concerns, yes.
What's going to be done, Captain? I mean, you're in the business of law enforcement. I know you guys work hard. You lay your lives on the line every day for us, and the vast majority of Americans appreciate that. But what is going to be done to stop this from occurring again? Because the group, SEIU, shows zero remorse. In fact, they stand by their actions.
Well, in law enforcement, we have to walk the fine line of enforcing the law, but also protecting the rights of everybody. There's free speech in this country, and we have to watch that as well.
There's free speech in the country, sir, but when free speech crosses over onto a man's front lawn and front stoop, something's gone wrong. Wouldn't you agree?
In this case, we didn't witness that, and we weren't able to take action. It's my belief that had the police been there, it might not have gone that far. Again, these people were very compliant and peaceful when the police arrived.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense. The D.C. Chief is saying that he notified you as soon as they crossed the line. If that's the case, where were the Maryland police? Why weren't they there? Why didn't you witness it? There are a lot of questions that remain to be answered in this case, sir. I'll give you the final word, and I got to go.
Well, it does take us some time to respond to a call, even when we're just a few minutes away. Again, I believe this group was there for just a few minutes. I don't think it was anywhere close to an hour. I think they had a number of places they were going to that day. Thank you.
They did. They went to the home of a J.P. Morgan executive after that, and apparently there's no stopping them. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on. We'll be right back.
Thank you.